Ladies and gentlemen, we're joined on the phone by an author out of Vermont. I think it's his first book that he's ever written, and the book is called Let's Go, Benjamin Orr and the Cars. We welcome to the show Joe Milliken. Good morning, Joe.
Greg, how are you? It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. I'm excited for a couple of different reasons. A, you're from Vermont. B, Bellows Falls, by the way, which just came up on yesterday's show. The nickname for Bellows Falls was Fellows Balls. And I come from a town called Somersworth, and the nickname of that town is Scummersworth. So I feel like we're kindred spirits already. You know.
Well, I've lived in Bellows Falls for many years, so I've heard that nickname more than once, believe me.
I had never heard it. Had you guys heard it? I had never heard it. No, until yesterday.
It makes sense, though.
Joe, I got to start by saying I'm excited about the book because we were talking about it on the air yesterday, and the Cars, I started playing some of the Cars songs, and I think that, you forget how good that band was from the get-go. Probably one of the best debut albums of any band ever. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, that debut album is just iconic, and it's actually the 40th anniversary of that, not to make everybody feel old.
Wow.
But it's the 40th anniversary of the debut album, and it's funny, band members of the Cars in the past have actually joked about that debut album actually being a greatest hits.
Yeah, right.
Because, I mean, every song on it is played on classic rock radio. It's incredible.
And you think about what, and look, I don't mean to sound like the old guy, but I mean, you think about albums that come out now, there's no album like it. There's no album where every song on the record will be listened to 30 years from now and being played anywhere. I don't think. I mean, everything's changing so quickly, but the other thing about it, Joe, is I don't know anything about Ben Orr. And I'm a guy that pays attention to that stuff. I know a little bit about Ocasek, Greg Hawkes and David Robinson. I've heard the names. Ben Orr was such a great vocalist. Why don't more people know about him?
Well, he is kind of a mystery man, if you will. He was a very private guy off stage.
Yeah.
I learned this through all the interviews I did. I worked on this book in my spare time because I have a regular full-time job, and I do my writing stuff on the side. And I've worked on this book for, believe it or not, 11 years.
Wow.
I interviewed over 120 people who knew Ben because obviously the man wasn't around or isn't around for me to interview myself.
Right.
He passed away in 2000.
Right.
So what's the next best thing? I got to interview as many people as I can who knew him so they could be his voice. And one of the common things I learned through all these interviews was that Ben was a very private man. And I like to describe it as he would flip a switch to go on stage and be a rock star. And then he would come off stage and he'd flip that switch back off and then just become a normal guy like you and me.
Yeah.
So he avoided the spotlight. I mean, he was really good to fans, and I've been told that, if there were 100 people standing around him wanting an autograph, he would stand there and sign every one.
Yeah.
But in the same token, he was a very private guy, and I think that sort of lends to maybe people not knowing that much about him. I mean, I still have Cars fans well, maybe not Cars fans, but rock fans who say to me that some of them didn't even realize that they had two singers.
Yeah, right.
Everyone thought it was just Rick singing. People don't even realize that Ben sang over half their hit songs.
Oh, I see. I think there's a definite dichotomy in the band, whereas Ben Orr was the melodic side, and I thought Ocasek, as a listener, was kind of the quirky side. He did all the You Might Think and all the weird kind of techno new wave songs, and Ben Orr had a little bit more of a melodic voice. That's my opinion. This is Joe Milliken. The book is called Let's Go, Benjamin Orr and the Cars. Kelly Brown. Question.
So Joe, who wrote the songs? Was it Ocasek and Ben Orr together? And how did they decide who was going to sing?
No, actually, Rick was the main songwriter. Rick wrote all the lyrics. He would bring lyrics into the studio, and the other guys in the band would have their input as far as arranging the songs and the music part of it. But Rick was the sole lyricist of the band, and he was the leader, if you will.
Yeah.
But when it came time to figure out who was going to sing the songs, I know that Rick didn't write his songs with him in mind or Ben in mind, like write a song and go, this one's for me, and then write a song and go, this one's for Ben. He would go into the studio with these lyrics and songs, and they would start arranging them, and then him and Ben would both try it. They'd both take a turn at it, and they would look at each other and kind of figure out through the vibe of it who should have the song.
Yeah.
So they just kind of played it by ear, if you will, and went in the studio and started singing songs, and they would just kind of naturally figure it out. Oh, this one's for you. This one's for me. And it's funny, Greg, that you mentioned how there were two distinctive sounds to their voices, because that's exactly how I describe it. Rick was the more quirky kind of singer, and Ben was more of a crooner. He was he had more of a smooth voice, and he was a big Elvis fan when he was a kid, which I think kind of comes out in his vocals a little bit, if you will.
Oh, so Kasich had no problem giving up some of those big hits to Ben Orr.
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, there were a couple of times, or he has been quoted as saying that when I had a real serious song and I knew it needed a great voice, that one went to Ben.
Yeah, you can't picture Rick Ocasek singing, who's gonna drive you home tonight. That's not set for his voice, but it was perfect coming from Ben Orr. Joe Milliken on the phone with us. Go ahead, Roadkill.
What was the biggest surprise writing this book that you learned about Ben?
Biggest surprise? Well, I think I already mentioned it. To me, the biggest surprise was, you see Ben Orr, this glamorous, good-looking, incredibly singing rock star on stage, and you think he'd be like that all the time, walking around in the spotlight all the time, and you wouldn't blame him. But like I said, he was the opposite of that. He flipped the switch when he went off stage, and he became a very private guy. So that was one thing that surprised me. Another thing that surprised me a little, and it was a common thread through almost everybody I interviewed, was that Ben was a very loyal guy as well. He's originally from Cleveland, home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
And he was, let's see, how do I say it? He was very loyal to his friends, and even after he became famous, the Cars would go on tour. He would call up his buddies from his hometown, guys that he was bandmates with when he was a kid, and he would get them backstage passes, tickets to the show. He'd get them limo rides, picking them up at their house.
Right.
He wouldn't let any of them spend a dime.
That's cool.
So he was a very loyal guy, and although Ben was a private guy and it was hard to get to know him, if you did get to know him and he became your friend, he was your friend for life.
Makes me love him more. Didn't he move to Reading? I think he had a place in Reading, didn't he?
He did.
Wow, beautiful place.
He lived on the outskirts of Boston, but once the Cars broke up in the late 80s, Ben was, believe it or not, another kind of interesting thing about Ben was he was a nature guy. He was like a hunter and a fisherman, and he loved being in the woods. So, yeah, when the Cars broke up and he decided to move away from Boston, that's kind of why he came to Vermont.
Which is so weird, because in the Cars, I always kind of thought, and I don't mean this as a knock, but I mean, he was the good-looking guy. He was like the pretty boy, like the lead singer, like with the smooth voice, and here he is as an outdoorsman. I wanted to ask Joe, I saw the Cars. I was lucky enough to see them on the Candy-O tour. Not the most physically exciting band. No, they weren't.
But that's what you've always said. You're like, I saw the Cars, but they didn't move. They didn't do anything on stage.
Well, and I wonder when they started, I mean, they could have had no idea that they were going to become as big as they were, I'm assuming. B, were they primarily thinking they were going to be a studio band or not?
Well, I think Rick kind of thought of them as that. I think it's almost like they went on tour as a necessity. You put an album out and you got to go do concerts. But yeah, you're right. They weren't very demonstrative on stage. They didn't worry about stage antics or pyrotechnics or, having all kinds of spotlights everywhere. They weren't really like that. They were really concentrating on the music and being pristine musicians on stage.
Were there fights? Like I know that the band ran its course, and my memory serves me correctly, I don't remember there being knockdown dragouts. There wasn't that kind of explosion within the band, or did I miss something?
No, you didn't miss anything, because they were purposely kind of like that. I mean, obviously, they butted heads. I mean, the band broke up in the end, so you know that there was stuff going on there. Without getting into details, there were a lot of things, I mentioned that Rick was the main songwriter, so, you get all the publishing rights, so if you're writing the songs, you're probably making 3 times as much money as the rest of the guys.
Right.
There were conflicts, but they were very private about it, and when the band broke up, they never ever released an official press release saying that we're done.
Yeah.
They just kind of faded off. So you're right, you didn't really miss anything. I think they kind of purposely just wanted to fade away and try not to make a big deal about it.
You know what's great about it is that it doesn't get in the way of the music. Like when you think of the Cars, you don't think of any shenanigans or BS. You think about just the music because there's no other story there. The salacious kind of Motley Crue breakup fight kind of thing that we've heard, and I appreciate that. But that's also what makes guys like Ben a mystery. The book is called Let's Go, Benjamin Orr and the Cars, and Joe Milliken. We just got it. It's just out now and is available everywhere. Joe.
It is available everywhere. You can get it on different websites, Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, places like that. You can order it at the publisher's website, which is Rowman and Littlefield. I also, my public relations coordinator, Donna, and I also created a website for the book. It's really simple. It's just benorbook.com. You can go to my website. It's got some select photos from the book, some stories, a little author bio. And you can also order the book there. How
excited? I mean, first book, right? You got to be so excited.
Well, you must be excited. It's done after this many years of working on it.
So, what's next?
Well, I've been a published writer for about 20 years, but it's all been newspapers and magazines.
Yeah.
I also publish my own music-related website called Standing Room Only.
Nice.
So I do all that kind of writing stuff all along. But you're right. This is my first book, and it's almost surreal because I've been working on this book for so long, and I've been and obviously I talk to my friends and my family about it all the time, all through all these years, and after a while you kind of think almost like you're crying wolf.
Yeah.
And your friends are probably thinking to themselves, "Oh yeah, Joe, that's great. Let me know when it comes out, will you?"
Well, we are glad to be. I don't know if we're the first, but we got to be early on, one of the first anyway. But we're glad to be one of the first to have you on to talk about it. I'm really excited to read it. Let's Go, Benjamin Orr by Benjamin Orr and the Cars. Joe, it's really been a pleasure talking to you, man. Thanks for coming on with us.
I want to tell you guys, I listened to Q106 in Claremont, the classic rock station.
Thank you,
I've been a fan of you guys for a long time, and going back probably 5 years, I would listen to you guys on the radio, and I would say to myself, someday, when my book gets done, I'm going to be on this show, damn it.
Amen, brother.
So this is a huge accomplishment for me, and I know there's a lot of people listening out there who know me. So, hey, everybody, I made it.
Making dreams come true.
The best right there. Joe, thanks for coming on, man. The pleasure was all ours. We wish you nothing but the best success with the book, man. Thank you very much.
Greg and everybody, I cannot thank you enough. I love your show, I really appreciate you having me on. Let's go.
We'll talk to you in 11 years when your next book comes out.
Thanks, Joe. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, everybody.
That's pretty cool. I made it. That's funny. They're a mystery band. They're a mystery band. This, by the way, is my favorite Ben Orr song. Right there. All right. 924.
From the movie Heavy Metal.
From the Cars' first album. Okay.
I'm going from the movie Heavy Metal.
Okay. All right, Joe Milliken. Good stuff. That was good. He did a good job. 925 on the buzz. Still more to catch up on, my friends.
Yes. And we haven't done it.
Even as the show is happening today.
Oh, and Final Kelly.
Yeah, even